Welcome to Inside Amusements, your number one podcast about yesterday, today, and tomorrow's amusements. With your hosts, Brian, Chris, and Eric. I'm Joe, the producer, and this is episode number 6, Field Trip Favorites. And now, here's Brian.
Thanks, Joe. Well, this week in the news, we're going to start off with the Cincinnati Zoo. Looks like their Bear Hill section of the zoo is going to be converted into a completely new section that will incorporate the Bear Ridge, Sea Otter Coast, and a new habitat dedicated to North American backyard wildlife.
Nothing like squirrels. And then the next story we have today is Air Force One has gone vertical. The lift hill is done. Looks great. Red, white, and blue. It looks amazing. And they're actually working on the Raven Trust dive now.
All you Star Wars fans out there, the newest trailer for Obi-Wan Kenobi series has just been released. Looks like the new trailer includes some clips of the big old baddie Darth Vader and a nice little low blow by Uncle Owen to Mr. Obi-Wan Kenobi. So this should be a very interesting show.
I am very excited for all of you Star Wars fans. And then lastly, for all you music fans, if you are a fan of Dolly Parton, she is contemplating making a rock album and incorporating the Rolling Stones to help her out with that. She was thinking about this just with her recent nomination to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So she said she wasn't worthy to go in there. They said, yes, you are. So she's like, okay, well, let me do a rock album. But yeah, that is all for this trip around the news carousel.
All right. Chris, Brian, thank you so much. That's some amazing news coming up. So we are really excited for all of that, and we can't wait to see the zoo and the new Star Wars and, shoot, Air Force One. I mean, come on. Dolly Parton making a rock album. That's amazing stuff. So all that being recent, we thought tonight or today, whenever you're listening to this, we're actually going to take a trip down memory lane with some of our favorite field trips growing up. So I'm sure, everybody listening, right? We've all got our favorite field trips, or those are going to bring about memories. And that's just really what we're hoping to do tonight, is kind of talk about some of that stuff. I'm going to kick it off just by saying that when I was growing up, we went to a place called Green Acres. Joe, don't play the song because we don't want to get sued for that.
Of course, immediately that's what I thought about.
Yeah, I know, right?
Acres.
Is that the place to be?
That's all we can say about that.
Was Zsa Zsa Gabor with you?
No. No, Green Acres was this, well, it still is. It's still there. But this kind of farm in Indian Hill, which is a little suburb down here in Cincinnati. But I remember going there as a kid and just kind of being out in nature and learning about that stuff. I don't know if I really have a specific memory of something I took away from that. But it was always fun just to get outside of school and just be in the woods, or walk through a creek, or go on these, trails and stuff. And it's this super old building. So you walk into the farm and it's it's got that smell. Right. I mean, it's kind of you remember that. And I don't know, that was just one of my favorites, just because we went there all the time. And I remember every time the teacher would be like, all right, Wednesday afternoon, we're going to Green Acres. We were all like, oh, Wednesday afternoon can't come soon enough. It was just one of this little place here in Cincinnati that we all loved. So that's kind of the stuff we're going to be talking about tonight. But I'm curious, Joe, what's one of your favorite field trips growing up, or just, something that comes to mind when you hear that term, school field trip?
Yeah, well, I definitely have a few. I always think that it's interesting. What was the best part about having a school field trip? Was it the the fact that you're leaving school, not going to have to do any schoolwork, not going to be in the classroom anymore? Or was it really just to be at this place, whatever it was? What was the most exciting part? And
Yeah.
so I would say definitely for me, one that sticks out is probably somewhere, I think around, I was probably in 5th grade. So I guess I would have been about 10 years old. And here in Cincinnati, we had a toy factory, one of the greatest toy factories, at least in that time as a kid, and that would be Kenner Toys. And for many years, they produced the Star Wars toys, the action figures and everything. And I remember we took a school field trip to Kenner Toys, and still remember it today as like being one of the greatest experiences, even as an adult. And I've traveled and done some cool stuff, but right downtown Cincinnati, 20 minutes from where we were, and got to tour the entire factory of Kenner Toys. And what was really cool is that, being inside, right before we left, we were able to choose a toy that we wanted that they were manufacturing. And, I think around that time, I remember Care Bears was pretty big and was coming out. So maybe Strawberry Shortcake. I feel like I kind of remember like some of the girls, gravitated more towards Strawberry Shortcake. But we, the boys mostly chose the Star Wars stuff. So I actually chose Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi, which is right here. Now, this is not the original one, unfortunately, but so walking out of the Kenner Toy Factory onto the bus, and everyone pulling out what they chose, and immediately we're fighting, we're doing our lightsaber duels and everything right there on the back of the bus. So definitely one of the coolest field trips I've ever done.
And for those that are listening, if you want to, you can always check us out on YouTube, where you could see Brian and Joe pull up their action figures. So it was pretty cool. I've
got a lot more too, but it just didn't feel like getting into them.
That's amazing. Chris, what about some of yours? What you got?
I think one that really stands out is when we were in elementary school, we have a place up here that was called Smith Farms. And it was probably in October, and they would every year, everybody that was in 1st grade would get to go and pick pumpkins. And then they had huge hay mazes, corn mazes, all sorts of things for the kids to do. And we would spend all day there. And I think going back to what Joe was talking about, was it leaving school that was your favorite thing, or, actually going to the place? I would say it was definitely leaving school for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I liked being away from school. I don't know what it is. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be doing schoolwork, but let's go have fun. I think that's one of my fondest memories, at least for an elementary school field trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And who could forget, like, actually just like the bus ride, to the location.
Yeah.
A lot of
and just being with your friends, your schoolmates, like,
yeah,
you just get to spend the whole day outside of school with them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Got to kind of cut loose a little bit. What about you, Brian?
I think best field trip was probably 6th grade. We went to Camp Joy, which is north of Cincinnati. I think it's I'm trying to think. It's a little farther than Wilmington, Ohio, but almost like Washington Courthouse. But it was a camp way out in the country, and I remember we spent a week out there, and it was pretty cool. I mean, it's the first time I'd ever been to a camp, and just kind of like seeing your school friends is like 24/7. You're not used to that, and it was just cool. I mean, we did a lot of things, a lot of like nature hikes. They had like rope courses in the trees and stuff like that. One thing we did, which I know probably wouldn't go by today, is they did the slave thing where half the people were marked as slaves, the other half were marked as like slave owners, and they like sold you off and stuff. But I remember I was marked as a slave, but the little rebel that I decided I was going to escape and run. I booked it. I got in so much trouble for that. But hey, you gotta do what you want there. But and another thing that we did, I remember we didn't get caught, but it was I think most boys probably did around that age, is we snuck out of the cabin that night and trying to find our way to the girls' cabin, the peek on in. And I remember this one kid. God, I'm trying to remember what his name was.
I seen this movie. Wasn't this called Porky?
Yeah. And he literally had like infrared goggles that you can see in the dark. Oh God, I'm trying to remember what the guy's name was, but
I know what it was. It was Data, right? From the Goonies.
Yeah. And there was about 5 or 6 of us that snuck through the woods. I mean, we had to go halfway across the camp because the girls were on one side, the boys were on the other side.
Now, this was a field trip.
There was a field trip.
This wasn't like summer camp. It was just a.
It was weird because it was like summer camp, but during the school year. So it was late spring, I guess, before they had their summer season.
That's cool.
And
I
came out.
I know that I went on something similar. It was Camp Wilson up in Bell Fountain, Ohio, and it was literally 2 nights, and I think 3 days or something like that, where you just did a whole bunch of stuff outside, and there's like we did archery, basketball, tennis, climbing walls, rope courses, that kind of stuff. So, and just learning about animals and insects and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that was late spring, so I remember doing the same thing.
We did an overnight, and Chris or Brian, I'm sorry, it's funny you mentioned stuff you can't do anymore. I remember on our overnight, and I don't even remember where we were or how old I was. But we did this thing where it was like you had the Native Americans and the original settlers, and it was like we were the settlers, and then you'd walk through the woods and you'd interact with different characters basically, or people playing a character, and it was like meant to teach like a lesson on like how I guess America really was back when it was first started. And it was really interesting. And I mean, it was fun. Like thinking back on it, I'm like, man, that's a great lesson. But I'm sure at the time we were all thinking, man, we're just like out at night, away from teachers, away from counselors, away from supervisors. Like, I'm sure we did some stuff but I don't remember what it was. I just remember, but it's funny. Like you mentioned, like stuff you can't do anymore. And then that just like made me think about it. But I do remember that, like, that was one of our first overnight places at some random camp somewhere in Ohio, probably. I don't know.
Yeah. So field trips, of course, are always meant to be like this outing to like enrich and learn, and when you think of it that way, in that context, it seems like that would be boring, but it was always fun. I can't say that I've ever been on a field trip that I didn't have a blast, it was a learning experience, but for us, it was like, man, it was a fun time.
Yeah, because most of the time you're in groups or placed in groups with friends, and you have, like, I remember being sent off. We were at the Ohio Historical Society or something like that, and they gave us a sheet of paper and said, "Here's a scavenger hunt. Go find get in groups of however many. Go find fun. What you want, and then we're all going to meet down in the cafeteria at this time." So I think it was really fun just to be able to go. It's really like life experiences at a younger age, being like, hey, you can go off on your own in this group of 4, but come back here at this certain time. So, I mean, it's definitely educational and, life lessons at the same time.
That's an added bonus when you're on a field trip and you get to run off with the group away from the teachers.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, double score.
We had a couple troublemakers on the way to camp. I remember because it was a really long drive. I mean, longer than your typical field trip. I think it was an hour and a half drive up there. I think almost 2 hours,
which is about half a day for a kid.
Yeah, and I remember a couple kids mooning the drivers behind us because the school bus has that little back door and it's got 2 windows, and they're just like dropping their drawers and sticking their butt to the glass it was hilarious. It's like, oh boy, and
back in the days before people had cell phone cameras.
yeah. And of course, the semi drivers are going by. Everybody's like sticking their arms out, doing the motion, like pull your horn.
Yeah, that's the one I remember. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was always fun.
These troublemakers, did they start with the letter B and end with Ryan?
No, I was actually one of the more well behaved kids. So,
yeah, the bus ride to the field trip was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. That's like you're so excited, and I would imagine it was probably crazy for teachers at that time. I mean, we must have been pretty loud and annoying and crazy.
I couldn't imagine being a bus driver.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back on that, I should probably send like an apology letter to a couple of those bus riders. I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. My bad.
Feel guilty years later.
Yeah.
What about the packed lunches?
Oh, yeah.
Right. What about
the cold peanut butter and jelly? You knew they kept in the refrigerator for like a whole day prior.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a brick. When you unwrapped it, it was kind of like half frozen. Almost.
That's right. Had your name on it. Usually, the brown bag. I remember, of course, like going to the zoo. I mean, I think probably most people went to a zoo for a field trip. Maybe one of your earliest field trip experiences, and finding a spot, where everybody would sit down and gather around, and you would have your lunch. And I actually remember on that note, I remember specifically a field trip to the zoo. So I believe I was probably somewhere at about I think 4th grade. And about the only thing I can remember, a couple things. So the monkeys were always up to no good, right? And generally try to be as clean as I can here, but they were often, mischievous and doing some crazy things. And, kids could spot that, and seeing a monkey basically engage in the activity of, how do I say it, going number 2 and throwing it, right? I don't know. It's so funny. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that since then. But as a kid, you can spot those things, and I think as an adult, you don't really, maybe just you're oblivious to it, but seeing that quite a bit.
It's not like the viral video that's going around of that little rhinoceros that's pooping, but then the tail's going like a million miles an hour, like this,
spinning around,
throwing it everywhere.
Yeah, it was usually when that happened on the field trips. It's usually the girls are like, ew, they're running away. The guys are sitting there like,
the boys are
cheering on the monkey.
Yeah, it's funny. Most everything I remember about field trips is always something like that, and then I remember, I actually, another kind of poop story. I was under the tree. I think we were watching the elephants or something, or maybe the giraffes outside. And I was standing under, we're all outside. I'm under a tree, and a bird poops on my head. And I'm standing there with my entire class, and my teacher spots it right away. She's standing next to me, and she was so awesome about it. I remember she kind of grabbed me and pulled me away from everyone, and quickly grabbed a napkin, was trying to wipe it off of me and stuff, because she didn't want me to be embarrassed about it or to have other kids kind of, picking on me about it. But man, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be calling you poopy head for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And, I don't need that.
No, that's terrible. That actually happened to my mom at Cedar Point. As soon as we got out of the car, seagull plop.
Oh, yeah, those seagulls they're horrible up there. They'll dive bomb you.
Yeah. Now, have you any of you had a souvenir of any type from any of your field trips?
Oh,
I don't have anything today. I have souvenirs that I collect now, but nothing from when I was a kid. But
yeah,
what was some of your favorite souvenirs, maybe?
Yeah,
or that you can recall.
I mean, I guess I don't know why I thought of this, but it's just just nostalgia things from they have COSI up here in Columbus, and they had a building prior to the one they're in now, which was, in my opinion, way better than new COSI. It had a spot up on the third floor for kids where you could go in. They have frames of houses and foam bricks where you get to build a house. And they have this whole huge water table of things with bubbles. So you could just splash around and do all sorts of things. But I remember that I may have taken something I shouldn't have and had a brick.
Wow.
So, I mean, I guess it's not a paid for souvenir because I wasn't, old enough to buy anything then. But
How would you get out with that? Like, you
I
shoved
think
it down your pants?
this was a time where we packed our own lunches for this trip.
Okay.
So I had it on me somehow. I don't remember. I just remember being home with it somehow. And I must have put it in my bag that I took my lunch in. But yeah, that didn't happen, COSI. I did not do that.
So that's not called a souvenir. That's called an item that you stole. That's.
I mean, I was definitely in elementary
evidence
school,
is
and
what
I didn't know any better than I guess.
Chris, Columbus PD is coming for you like in the next 10 minutes.
It was a piece of foam. Probably
but you stole
27
it.
years ago.
Yeah, I don't think I really have any souvenirs from any field trips. I do remember one field trip, I think it was 4th or 5th grade. I was at CO Harrison, and we took a trip to Cincinnati, and we went. I remember we went downtown, kind of hit all the spots like Eden Park and all the historic sites. But we went to Findlay Market, and back then it wasn't as nice as it is now. It was kind of really run down. I'm surprised our parents even let us go. But I remember this one kid. He was, his parents were wealthy. They had money and stuff. And there was a Chinese store down there, sold all the Chinese stuff, like different Chinese restaurants and all that. And he went in there and he bought a huge bag of like 500 fortune cookies and brought it out. We were on the bus and he's just throwing fortune cookies out everywhere. It's like, we were all on such a sugar high from eating fortune cookies that whole trip. It was hilarious.
Yeah, Findlay Market, for those of you that don't know, it's one of Ohio's oldest operating public markets, downtown Cincinnati. Really cool place, man.
I actually do have a souvenir from a field trip. So this is my senior year in high school, and we always did like a senior trip, and we went to Chicago. And on the last day, the bus ride home, we stopped in Chinatown in Southside Chicago, had lunch, and then got to shop around. And there was like a store. I don't know if it's still there. I have no idea what it's called. But it was basically like a weapons store. And so all of us guys walked in it, and they had, knives and nunchucks and throwing stars.
I was going to say, probably stars, yep.
Yep. And I bought this giant buck knife. It kind of looks small in the camera. It's got a couple mallards on it, but this thing is like, it's a decent buck knife. And so we get back on the bus, and there was quite a few of us that like bought, little pocket knives and stuff. And the teachers were like, all right, well, we know where you were. So just hand it over, and then you can get it when you get home. Man, I just put mine in my backpack. Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I didn't buy anything. Like, I ain't got nothing.
Man, I would have went for the nunchucks
to this day.
That's so cool.
I was trying to find something that I could like sneak back in, But it's weird because like we're in Chinatown, so there's like mallard ducks on it, and then there's like a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I still have it.
If you ever been to Gatlinburg, there's that store down there on the main strip.
I was just thinking that.
All those.
Yeah. You can buy those knives. You can buy throwing stars, nunchucks. I mean, they have all that on the strip.
I think it's like up on the second floor. I forget what the place. I remember we went on vacation as kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I got a butterfly knife then.
It's still there too. Yeah. I mean, we were there a few years ago. It's still there.
Those stores.
We had a place like that in Phoenix, Arizona as well. So that's pretty funny.
Of course, nowadays, if you did it on a field trip, you'd be in jail or like really quick. They would have
you'd
called
be
the
busted.
cops on you. Yeah.
Apparently, it's a golden idea because it's been there for years. And you think of like the strip on Gatlinburg is like it's family friendly, all these shops, and somebody's like, I know what they want. They want weapons. And sure enough, it's like, I mean, they're still
Watch
open.
out for them
They're
bears
still-
down there.
Yeah. Need a knife
So the
for a bear
inside-
fight.
The Inside Amusement's next endeavor is going to be one of those stores.
Mhm.
We're not opening that up.
Yeah, I think some of the souvenirs I kind of remember, I was probably the nerdy kid because I loved kind of like, like thinking about like museums and stuff like that, like a bookmark or something like, like I was very practical. I wanted stuff like that. And, I kind of remember like maybe a wooden nickel or something like, sort of like the actual like real souvenir type things,
Yeah.
postcards. And even to
Yeah.
this day, I collect postcards. When we travel now, I have to buy at least like 3 to 5 postcards from wherever we're traveling because they're so cheap and it's just it's a very nostalgic thing and it's so easy to like to collect, hundreds of them. They don't take up a lot of space. So I've always enjoyed kind of getting stuff like that as souvenirs.
Yeah, I remember going to another place was the old Natural History Museum in Cincinnati.
Oh yeah.
And the cool thing about that is they had a bat cave in there that you had to climb down. I mean, I don't think there's really any real bats in there. They just called it a bat cave. But it's kind of cool because it's like you're going through a museum, all of a sudden you're climbing through a cave.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cool.
That cave is still there. It's at so it's now the Cincinnati Museum and at Union Terminal. And the Museum of Natural History. It's the same cave from when we were kids. In fact.
Oh wow, yeah. I have to go check that
it
out.
Still exists, and there is an area where they do have live bats, but it's behind glass. But as you're going through the cave, you can see there's and they have little bowls of blood that they feed off of. But to this day, museums are still one of my favorite places to go to, and I think I think it's from the many trips that we did as a kid. Field trips to the museum.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the museums in DC, the Smithsonian, things like that. I think that was one of my favorite trips. Actually, that is my favorite trip in school. Was going to Washington DC, seeing all of the huge diamond that they have there. I forget what it was called. Some sort of diamond that's on display there. The Heart Diamond or something like that.
That's probably the Hope Diamond.
Yeah, the Hope Diamond. That's it. Yep. And then going to like the Jefferson, is it the Jefferson Theater where Lincoln got shot? I forget the name. I think it's Jefferson.
Oh, the Ford Theater.
Ford Theater.
Ford Theater. And then seeing the house across the street where he was laying in bed after all that and all that kind of stuff. It just, and then going to Arlington Cemetery, all that kind of stuff. I'm a huge history buff. So that was one of my favorite trips. And I would really enjoy to go back to DC.
Yeah, DC is awesome. I've only been to DC once, and I didn't get to experience everything there. And I always talk about I can't wait to get back because I want to see more of that stuff. But man, what a cool place!
And talk about a fun bus ride with your friends because we were in 8th grade, so you're in that time where you're like rowdy and everything with all your friends. But it was just a really cool long bus ride with all your friends on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
The coach buses or whatever they're called. Not just your school bus.
Oh, that'd be murder driving that far in a school bus.
Yeah. Had a blast though.
There's something so cool about seeing those places. Like there's a certain and I've been to DC a couple of times, not on a school field trip, but you go into one of those places and it's almost like there's a reverence about it, and Chris, when you were kind of talking about that, it just made me think one of my other favorite field trips that we went on as kids was one of my classmates had a family member who worked down at Cincinnati Music Hall, this very historical, venue here in Cincinnati. And we got to go on like a private backstage tour. And we got to see, everything and hear about all like the, there's like rumored ghost stories down in Music Hall. And, go up in the balcony and then onto the main floor. But the coolest part about that was we actually got to go on the main stage. And it was, I don't remember her name, but it was one of my classmates' birthday. So we had her go out into the seats and we got to sing happy birthday to her from the main stage of Cincinnati Music Hall. And that was just like one of the coolest things. Like, man, they do so many amazing performances and so many legendary people have played on the stage. And, that was definitely a fun day.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah. Music Hall is, man, what a cool place.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine being up on stage.
I did a haunted tour down there once.
Oh yeah, there's
cool.
there's so many cool hauntings down there. Yeah,
it's something I'd like to definitely check out when we get closer to that. I'm sure they only do it in October, right?
No, actually, they do them all year round.
Oh wow!
So, yeah, look out for a YouTube episode from us. I'm sure we'll be heading down there eventually.
Yeah, and that's just a good spot to say, more YouTube videos will come out eventually in between our off weeks for the podcast. We'll soon have videos coming out on YouTube in those in between weeks.
This was a fun one.
Oh yeah,
field trips! Woohoo! Woo!
Yay.
So I look forward to taking more trips. They're not field trips anymore. They're just regular fun trips.
Vacations.
Especially with the Inside Amusements crew.
There you go, baby. Let's make it happen.
Everybody, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Inside Amusements. As always, visit us at insideamusements.com. Follow us on social media. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. It means so much. We greatly appreciate the support. And we'll see you in the next one.